Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio, Sinoland in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And congratulations to Prabha Bala Subramanian and his comrade Samuel Kim, who's kind of in the background. They are participating in the first, well, I actually did one about 3 or 4 years ago, but this is the first real video podcast that I've done using Skype. So how are you doing, Prabha?
Great, thanks.
Prabha,
good to meet you.
yeah, likewise. We've been in contact together for the last several months. Prabha and Simon are members of the Trotskyist Platform in Australia. Are you all in Sydney?
Yeah. We've got some comrades in Brisbane, but we're in Sydney, yeah.
All right, cool. Anyway, they reached out to me, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago and said, you need to know about this cause célèbre that we're having here, and we will get to Chan Han Choi in a few minutes. But first off, you're in Australia. You all are communists, socialists, Marxists, Leninists, etc. When you think about stuff like this in the Western world, you're like going, wow, do these people actually exist? And of course they do. Tell us a little bit about the Trotskyist Platform, its history, size, activities. What you all just kind of give us a rundown.
Okay. So Trotskyist Platform stands for the overturn of capitalism and the building of a socialist and eventually a communist society. But we believe that's going to come about through participation in all the struggles of today. And in the course of those struggles, raising the understanding of the working class and downtrodden. And there's a lot of oppression in Australia. Most young workers, the majority, don't have a stable job. So they're either working part-time or they're working casual or they're working on fixed-term contracts. There's a lot of inequality. There's a lot of homelessness. One thing I notice is when I go to China, which has a per capita GDP about 6 times less than Australia, you see far less homeless people in Chinese cities than you do in Sydney. In fact, Chinese international students are quite struck by that because they thought they've come to an advanced country. And in terms of per capita wealth, it is advanced, but it has a lot of homelessness. Low-income people struggle to pay their rent. A lot of people skip meals. Also, there's a lot of social problems. There's an immense amount of racism and racist violence.
I've heard that.
Yeah. And the society is becoming increasingly repressive. So Trotskyist Platform participates and helps initiate a lot of struggles on day-to-day issues. So one of the main campaigns we've been running is for a big increase in public housing. So in Australia, the proportion of people with public housing is now down to 1 in 30. So it's a very low proportion. So rents are very unaffordable. Some people are paying 50%, 60% of their income on rent.
Sounds like Hong Kong.
Yeah, like Hong Kong. Yeah, so the rents are really high. So we're fighting for a big increase in public housing. We've been involved in various activities. In 2017, we helped initiate a blockade to help a public housing tenant facing eviction. And then 3 months later, we helped to organize a protest occupation where 60 to 70 people, including trade unionists, took over a public housing block that the government intended to sell off to wealthy private developers.
Wow.
Some other campaigns we've been involved in. We've been involved in campaigns for jobs for all, saying that profitable companies should not be able to sack workers. They're making a profit. They should be forced to increase hiring. And part of our rationale for that is to say to people, look, the reason there's not enough jobs is because of the greed of the big business owners. It's not because of migrants. It's not because of imported goods from China or elsewhere. And it's not because the unemployed people don't want to work. It's simply because of the greed of the big business owners who say wealthy couples who say they might have two, luxury yachts. They want three. They might have one private jet. They want the second one. So because of that, whenever it's profitable to do so, they don't hesitate to sack workers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I don't know how skewed it is in Australia, but they've done all kinds of analyses, and eight people in the United States own more wealth than the bottom 50%, than the bottom 160 million. 8 people own more wealth than 160 million people. So I suspect that Australia is probably not much different.
Not much different at all. Yeah, it's heavily concentrated.
Yeah.
And they have enormous political influence. Now, someone you would know of is Australian, Rupert Murdoch.
Oh, absolutely. My good friend. So you all have a group in Sydney? Do you have a group? You said you had a group in Brisbane?
Yeah, our main activity is in Sydney. We've got comrades in Brisbane, but our main, like when we hold demonstrations or actions, they're in Sydney. Yeah. So the last action we were involved in was on October 7, which is a public holiday, a Labor Day public holiday. And that was a United Front march, but I guess we were a big driving force in that, was to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Chinese Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And
you sent me a photo. You sent me a photograph of that.
Yeah.
Which I will post on the article.
Yeah.
To head the article. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, tell us about the challenges of working in Australia, both for members in the group. It's been quite a while, but I talked to, I had a really wonderful interview with another Australian, Ms. Leanne Lindsay, and it's been, about 3 years ago. And we stay in touch from time to time. And her stories about the discrimination against her and the hostility because she is a communist / socialist, and how her sister, hundreds of kilometers away, was refused a job because they found out that Leanne was a communist, so she couldn't. So she was denied employment. And it's just like, people think the McCarthy era, ended, in 1956 or 57. It never stopped since 1917. Can you kind of reflect on what you all have to deal with in terms of, trying to make a living, working, and et cetera?
There's definitely discrimination. There's also threats from far-right groups. So sometimes when we have a rally, there's racist rednecks or other right-wingers try to harass us. But, Australia's got a particular history. At the end of World War II, Australia was a big part of the so-called rat line, where the CIA and Australian intelligence organized to get Nazi war criminals from both Germany and Eastern Europe into the West so that they could be useful in the fight against communism. So Australia took in many Eastern European war criminals. And
fascists.
Yeah, fascists.
Fascist war criminals, I think it was called Operation Paperclip or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Thousands and thousands and thousands of murderous fascists were, taken out of Eastern Europe and Germany and sent all over the world to fight communism.
Yeah.
So Australia's no different, huh? Australia also got them? Okay.
Then there was a wave after 1975 of the defeated capitalist class in Vietnam who fled to Australia. So Australia's taken in anti-communist refugees from various parts of the world. But On the other hand, there's also people who are leftist activists who come to Australia fleeing right-wing coups and stuff. So there's Chilean leftists. So you've got this interesting mix. And then you've got recent arrivals from the People's Republic of China, the majority of whom, especially the working class Chinese people in Australia, are pro-PRC. So that's quite interesting. Yeah.
So have you all had any personal, difficulties, by being declared communist, socialists in terms of employment or friends or family or?
Yeah, I mean, that depends on individuals. I guess my own father was a leftist in his youth.
Okay.
Now he's turned into a social democrat. I mean, Samuel can speak to himself, but his mother has progressively moved to the left under his influence.
Yeah. Interestingly for myself, being a South Korean.
Where it's against the law to say anything nice about North Korea.
Oh yeah. And being a South Korean raised into a Christian and anti-communist, just your general capitalist kind of minded family, and kind of brainwashing as a youth. So when I tell my auntie that, so my mom says to my auntie, Samuel likes Kim Jong-un and things like that. And then the auntie would say, please don't say that in this house, the neighbors might hear.
Yeah, you can go to jail. There's people in jail for sending tweets and Facebook posts in Korea who said nice things about North Korea or Kim Jong-un, and they're in jail. It's just unreal.
You've actually got a case in South Korea where this one person shared like instrumental music that was made by the Korean People's Army, orchestral choir, symphony choir or something, or symphony orchestra, and that person was thrown into prison or something. And
unreal.
Well, it's crazy. The North Korean government.
Hey, well, listen, thank you for all of that. That's really fascinating, and I admire you all. I mean, because I understand, everybody thinks that Australians are, these open-minded and, global, cosmopolitan people. And I've heard just horrific stories about the horrific racism and it's just not to mention it's an occupied country. The U.S. military's got like 1,500 soldiers in Darwin, and it's always been a very loyal foot soldier for Western empires. So anyway, thank you for all that. Let's talk about Chan Han Choi. I never even heard about this guy, and it sounds to me like he's the unspoken Julian Assange of Australia. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah. So Chan Han Choi who's now 60 years of age, was arrested in December 2017. And he's been in prison ever since. He's awaiting trial, which is due next year. So he's a sympathizer of North Korea. He's a socialist. And he's accused of trying to break the United Nations sanctions on North Korea. He's accused of trying to broker deals to enable North Korea to export its produce abroad to help it raise income in violation.
Is he of Korean origin, or is he Chinese?
Yeah, so he was born in South Korea. Okay. He's an Australian citizen. He's been here 32 years.
Okay, so he's fully Australian. Okay.
Yeah, and he basically, out of his sympathy for North Korea and his humanitarian spirit, he was organizing deals before the sanctions kind of tightened. So he carried out a lot of legal deals, acting as basically a volunteer trade representative for North Korea. So he carried out legal deals, and then as the sanctions tightened, the Australian regime had accused him of carrying out illegal deals. But he refuses to be unbarred by his time in jail, and he's spoken out from prison. We've managed to get some messages out of prison. and he speaks out against the sanctions. He points out they're cruel and unfair, and he says why he's sympathetic to the DPRK. And it's not about all their leaders. He talks about the warm community spirit, how people are kind to each other, and he likes that. And he likes the egalitarianism of the society. Yeah.
So what if convicted, how many years could he spend behind bars?
Well, there's 8 charges against him, and each of them vary in their maximum sentence time from 8 to 10 years.
So basically the rest of his life if he was convicted on all that. Well, he's already 60 years old, yeah.
Yeah. And
it's just unreal.
Yeah, it's terrible. Friday, the week before last, he was denied bail in a bail application, and the excuse was that he would skip bail. But actually, he wants to fight these charges because he knows he's a political prisoner, and he wants to use the court case in the course of defending himself to oppose the sanctions, speak out against the sanctions, and speak out about the terrible way he's been treated, how all his rights as both a prisoner and a defendant have been violated. So they've blocked his friends from visiting, they've blocked his phone calls, they've obstructed lawyers and interpreters from visiting, a whole range of things. Yeah.
He also can't visit his wife or speak to his son as well.
Yeah, they can't visit. Yeah. And for example, his wife does not speak any English or barely any English. And his English isn't totally fluent, but it's sort of, he can speak a bit, but he's not allowed to speak to his wife in Korean. And they've been actually cutting off his calls, like literally an officer at the other end of the phone kind of cutting the call. But in addition to that, more recently, they threatened to send him to a supermax jail in Goulburn, some 4 or 5 hours from Sydney, if he ever spoke in Korean again on the phone.
And also something to add is that his son was sacked from his top IT company job because of his affiliation with his father.
Yeah.
So the police approached and then the company sacked him.
Yeah.
So
have you all been able to see him and go in and talk to him in the last couple of years?
Yeah. We had to wait. We applied, and it took between 4.5 to 5 months to get approval to visit him. Yeah. But we now have that approval. But that lasted for a year, and then so 3 of us have approval. But when our 1-year visiting rights expired, they tried to stop us. So they didn't renew it, and then we pushed and we sent an open letter of protest, and then they eventually backed down. So we are able to visit again. But his son is not able to visit, and his phone calls are blocked. So he's not allowed to call us anymore. In fact, he's not even allowed to call his lawyers. He's only allowed to call his wife, but then he has to speak in English. So
they can't speak English.
yeah.
It's pathetic. And this is supposedly Western democracy, where people have rights, and it's a joke. It's an absolute joke.
Yeah. And it's part of growing repression in Australia. So there's been other cases that are different but have some similarities. They're people who've been persecuted because of their political stances or actions. So there was a guy called David McBride who was a military lawyer, and he revealed war crimes by Australian troops in Afghanistan. Like they had shot dead children, they had executed prisoners, they'd killed civilians. One I think armored personnel carrier even flew the Nazi flag, and
I think I remember reading that or seeing that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So is he locked up too?
He's not locked up, but he's facing charges that could see him locked up for years because he revealed that to the national broadcaster.
Well, just like Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange and every other whistleblower and truth teller.
That's right.
If you threaten the war machine, and its money making, its capacity to make billions, they will crush you. And it's really pathetic. Well, so what's next? So why is it going to take them 2 years to bring him to trial? And if he can't talk to his lawyers, how can he develop a case?
Yeah, well, see, they say, well, you can have an AV, audio-visual link with the lawyer, but you can't. They blocked him from calling his lawyers. Now, the other thing they've done is they've obstructed the lawyers from visiting. They've now got clearance to visit, finally, but the interpreters, Korean interpreters, don't have clearance yet. So it's extremely hard to build a case because he can't prepare. So what he's done is he's now put in a motion for something called a permanent stay, which means the trial is put off indefinitely. If he succeeds in that motion, the trial is put off indefinitely. He's released from custody, found neither innocent or guilty, but the trial is put off indefinitely on the grounds that he cannot get a fair trial. So that's being heard on November 29. And meanwhile, the support for him is building on the ground. And that's what we're putting our hope on, because by showing that he's not alone, that he has support, and by exposing the hypocrisy of what you just talked about, the claims to be democratic, and that
free press.
That's right.
Human rights, due process, habeas corpus, all that. It's just you only have that if you are a loyal foot soldier for empire. If you're not, that all goes out the window.
Exactly. So by exposing that and building support, we're hoping to force some sort of retreat from the other side. Now, they actually have noted his support. Funnily enough, the prosecution, the Australian Federal Police, put it in their statement of facts that he has all these supporters. They had a bit of whinge about it. And but funnily enough, what they also put is that they have us under surveillance. So in their in their statement opposing that, they kind of say, Choi's supporters turned up to court and they were wearing a shirt with the DPRK flag. And then they went to an internet cafe, and then they only split up later. Now, we were in that internet cafe and then outside for about an hour. Actually more than an hour before we split up. So they followed us about half a kilometer to an internet cafe, and then they've waited over an hour till we split up. Now, they put that in official court documents. We don't know why, how it's relevant to the case, but we think it's sending a message to his supporters that you're being stalked, and you should back off. But it's not going to happen. We're not going to back off, and he's got many other supporters. Yeah.
Well, I really admire what y'all are doing for him, and it must fill him with hope if he knows that you all are trying to help him. I mean, I'm sure he must appreciate anything that he can find out about what you all are doing.
Yeah. And hopefully more and more groups will get involved, and people overseas. People have stated verbal support internationally, but we're hoping that some people will take the initiative to organize demonstrations outside Australian embassies around the world in his support. Yeah.
Well, hopefully this video interview today on China Rising Radio Sinoland will get some notice, and some people around the world, and most of the fans of China Rising are in North America and Western Europe, and then the rest are in Asia, Africa, South America. So hopefully maybe we can hopefully this will inspire some people in other countries to speak up for Mr. Chan. And it's just awful, this is, and of course what's so pathetic is these sanctions are the American sanctions, and then like the good imperial lapdog, Australia is always there Korea, the Korean genocide, the Vietnam genocide, everywhere that the United States has gone to kill millions, the Australians have been right there with them. You know, Afghanistan, Iraq. It's just, you know, I have a lot of Australian friends, but it is a loyal foot soldier for the global elites, and it always has been. So
because Australia is a jackal imperialist power, so that the big tiger goes in and does the kill, but Australian imperialism gets its share. So
yeah, of course, that's right. Yeah, and France and Britain and Japan.
That's right. Yeah.
and all the other satrap nations. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The Australian ruling class doesn't have any rivals in this region. So it's the bully boy exploiter of a whole lot of South Pacific and Southeast Asian countries like Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Solomon Islands, East Timor. Yeah.
And Indonesia, they've got line there.
Australia's got its interests. Yeah.
Okay.
Shows operations in the Philippines, Sri Lanka as well.
Yeah. Well, listen, Prabha and Samuel, this has been a wonderful and revealing interview, and it's just been a wonderful discussion, and I hope that it will inspire some people, and that you are asking people who listen to this video and or watch this video, and you're going to send me several YouTube videos that you all have put together, short little 1 to 3 minute clips to explain about Mr. Chan, and hopefully this will inspire some people to get involved outside of Ausland.
Yeah. No, yeah. Thanks a lot, Jeff. And I got to say, very impressed at the work you're doing. Like, I think it's very important to explain to people around the world what Red China is doing and the achievements it's made 70 years, because they're earth-shattering achievements. And for us being communist in Asia, Australia's part of Asia, what happens in China means a lot. And it's a very big question in Australia, and it's potentially inspiring the struggles here. So I actually wanted to show you a little badge we have. I don't know if you can see, but it says massively increased public housing, just like socialistic China is doing. And so the socialist policies of China help the struggle for workers' rights and eventually for socialism in Australia.
Well, they're not only providing millions of low cost, and my wife actually lived in one in Beijing for several years.
Okay.
They're not only building millions of low cost subsidized housing for less than rich people, but they are eliminating poverty. They're just like eliminating poverty. They're going to have zero poverty by 2020.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's just unbelievable. So, well, listen, gentlemen, thank you so much. Please email me. I know you did, a couple of months ago, but please email me your website, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. The 3 clips you would like to see, the people to see, and I will embed those in the article so people can click on them and see them. And hopefully we'll get some people talking about Mr. Chan outside of Australia.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Lovely to meet you all. And if I ever make it, I've traveled to 88 countries, and I have never been to Australia or New Zealand. So I have got to get down there before I die. So when I do, the first beer's on me.
Okay, we look forward to seeing you.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Okay, see you. Bye.
Bye.